Hey guys, welcome back. This video we are going to tackle the rear anti-roll bar for this truck. So we got to get the thing jacked up obviously, and we're just gonna start to finish, or I mean it's already partly started, but we'll finish it off. And if you guys aren't familiar with the purpose of an anti-roll bar, I'm sure everybody knows what a sway bar is. This is basically the same idea. You're connecting one side to the other, except in a drag race application, you're doing it much more rigidly. So when you launch the vehicle, it really, you can load the one side so that it, stops twist. You can preload it a little bit so that it kind of drives the front corner down instead of, wanting to raise up. This is a little different application, obviously, because it's four-wheel drive. The chances of this thing doing a wheelie are, less than zero. And I really just want to try and keep this truck as planted and flat and straight as possible. So, who knows? We may not even need it, but we're here now. It's not a lot of work. I do really want to just one and done this thing so that if we do need it in the future, we have it. And I mean, if nothing else, it'll be a cool experiment. I've never built one myself before, so this will be fun. But yeah, I'm going to walk you over to the bench, show you what we've got so far, and then we'll get it jacked up and start finishing it, making it, tearing it apart, whatever. Okay, so I went ahead the other day and ordered some 1 3/4 095 4130 chromoly. I ordered two 6-foot pieces, thinking that both of the anti-roll bar parts are 1 3/4, and I goofed already. So these are billet steel. These are the actual arms that will be doing the pivoting for the anti-roll bar. These get welded. They slide onto the tube and get welded. They're 1.5 inches. And these are the bushings to make that anti-roll bar assembly removable. They're also 1.5 inches. But I did draw these earlier. These are the mounts, so this will all become painfully clear shortly. But basically, there's going to be two of these welded here, like so, roughly. And then this will get bolted in between those. Our actual anti-roll bar will come through here, and then these arms will be on here. So we can unbolt this assembly, slide these off the end of the tube, and then, I mean, actually, technically, they go this way so that those don't fall out while we're driving. But anyway, that's kind of roughly what it's going to look like. So I'm going to get the truck jacked up. We're going to pull the leaf spring mounts out. This is one side of the anti-roll bar plate that I didn't get finish welded on to those new leaf perches, tow hooks, whatever you want to call them. So one side's welded on, one side's not. So I got to get that welded on. But yeah, this plate here will bolt through there, and then this tube will weld to this plate. It's a lot going on, and we'll have adjustable rod end tubes come up. They'll attach to the chassis up here somewhere in that notch area, and then we'll be able to adjust this, preload this, disconnect it, whatever we need to do. Things I need to account for: I need to be able to make room for 5-inch exhaust, which putting a 9-inch in this truck already made a world of difference for space. The rear differentials on these things are monstrous, so the 9-inch is actually quite a bit smaller, and there's quite a bit more room. But we still need to take into account we're going to have a tube come up to the notch, and then on the back side of this there's going to be a shock as well. So I'm going to order, or at very least measure, shocks at ride height. We'll get those coming, and then obviously once we get this all mounted, I'll be able to order rod ends and some chromoly to make these tubes out of, so we can make our adjusters. And also probably I will weld a cross member in across the notches to attach these. So yeah, I think that's everything. Question mark? Anyway, I'm gonna go jack the truck up, and we'll start popping stuff off. First of all being this piece, so we can get it welded in and get those brackets done. And then we'll measure across these faces. That'll allow us to cut this, and then we can start mapping out where these are going to go in relation to the sides of the chassis, the potential for exhaust, etc. So, all right, here we go. Okay, gang, I must apologize for the lighting and the overall view here, but I got the plate welded on that leaf spring bracket, and then I went ahead and got this tube tacked into our flanges that will make this removable. So I've just got a couple bolts pressed through the holes here for the time being, just to hold it in place. But you can see here I've got an adjustable shock mount on either side. So I went ahead and measured roughly to where I want the upper eyelet to wind up, and these are going to wind up being about 16 or 17 inches at ride height, depending on what shocks we wind up with. So I can order those now. And then so the purpose of this exercise now is I'm going to be able to locate where I'd like to put these roll bar mounts. So what I'm thinking currently is, because I'm trying to jam a 5-inch exhaust back here, this diff has drooped quite a bit right now because I've got the weight off, so I was able to take that leaf spring bracket out. But what I'm hoping for is I'm going to actually try to aim it so that the footprint of these wind up in the same area as this shock bracket, just on the front side of this tube, because then that'll give me all this room to the left of these brackets for my 5-inch exhaust. So basically, if you can picture it, this is going to wind up something like that, and then we'll have the long adjustable bars that I was talking about go up here to a future tube that is not there yet. So I think if I leave about 2 inches off the end of this flange to the first removable weld-on tab that I have here, that should put me in a pretty decent spot. So I'm going to take this tube out and we'll get them placed and tacked on over on the bench, and then we'll final fit this one more time before we make everything permanent. Okay, so this is also how I lined up the tube and got these flanges welded on flat. I was able to put a piece of flat stock on either side with the clamps, so that gave me a straight line for these brackets to reference off of. And then I just measured a spacer here. This is a piece of aluminum with some tape wrapped around it we used for something else one time, and we just have a bunch of spacers laying in a thing. But anyway, I spaced the tube up off the table to catch my height with a piece of flat stock on either side, and then I spaced it out with these so that it got on the center of the plate. And yeah, pretty much nailed it. So another important thing, I get asked relatively frequently, for welding tips and tricks and whatever else. And much the same as anything else, guys, the prep is worth its weight in gold. So you can see this is the mill scale that came on this chromoly and how clean it is now. That's just me hand sanding it off. That will all get pulled into your weld if you're TIG welding it. So it doesn't take long to clean it. And the best way would be to stuff this in a lathe and clean the whole thing off, but our lathe doesn't have that big of a chuck, so I can't do that. So again, you can sand this at home just as easy. I just held this tube before I tacked that on, held the sandpaper and turned it in my hand. So yeah, all right, so I'm going to sand a little bit further up, clean these brackets up also, and then we'll lay out our weld marks and we'll get them welded in also. Okay, so I got everything cleaned and DA'd. I DA'd all these brackets. I cleaned all the mill scale out of the inside. Again, the prep is super, super important. You're gonna get your best weld possible. It's not gonna pull any of the mill scale into the weld. And now I'm gonna assemble it. I'm gonna use the aluminum blocks as my weld heat sinks. I just pulled the Delrin out of them so they don't melt, obviously. I've also got these Willwood brake spacers I'm going to put in between the brackets. These measure about 30 thou. So I like using these, especially when I can, weld stuff together before powder coat, because let's put it in there like so. And then I put my other bracket on. So this not only gives the part a bit of room to wiggle during welding, because they do pull, and you don't want this piece to be overly tight, having to come in and out, especially when it's raw, because if you're going to get it powder coated or whatever. Powder coat obviously has a thickness to it, so a 30 thou washer like this will give you some room for powder coat and movement, and it just works out really well that that extra little 30 thou goes a long way when you are welding tabs like this. It basically, again, when it's powder coated and everything, this is how you get your parts to fit really, really nice. So I'm just going to take my little ruler here and measure out 2 inches off of that flange like we spoke about. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to lay this bracket flat against the table, and that's going to get me the bottom of the flange flush with the bottom of this outside flange. I mean, you could make it so that these bars sit level in the truck, but the reason I'm doing this is because I run a relatively small tire on it, and the higher up I can get this tube, the less of a chance I have of smashing that lower ear on this bracket off the ground. I'm only going to have a few inches between the ground and this anyway, so if I can cheat it a little bit, I'm going to. And also, just setting it up flush against the table like that makes it really easy for me to line them both up. I don't have to put spacers under them or anything. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get these tacked up, and then we'll fit it one more time in the truck and get it welded out. Okay guys, once again, please excuse the lighting, but we got this here unit in, and you can see that front mount there. This side's a little better because it's got a shock mount in the rear, but basically, let me set this tripod up a little bit. Okay, so I just grabbed a piece of 1.5" cut off DOM we have. So if you can picture this going across, connecting these two mounts, what's going to happen is this is going to slide in there like that, and then again we will have an adjustable, for lack of a better term, link bar that goes from here up to a cross member up under the box attached to the chassis, and this will be what ties the differential together, ties the leaf springs together, makes it so that if the truck leaves like this, one side will actually fight the other. We could preload one side more if we needed to, just to keep it to leave straight instead of tweaking up like that. So quite happy with how this fits. So now I'm going to pull it out and we will final weld it. But yeah, that will obviously spin in the Delrin. This link bar will get welded to the permanent tube here, and then if we ever need to remove this assembly, we just take these 4 bolts out of these tabs, remove the whole assembly, and then we can slide the Delrin and the aluminum bushings off the ends of the anti-roll bar itself. So hopefully that explains it enough until we can get the link bars made and the upper mount made, but for the time being that's about as good as I can do. So yeah, we'll pull this out and get it all welded up, and that'll be another section completed. Okay guys, I changed up my plan a little bit, and I realized that I should probably have a piece of tube in here just to make 100% sure that this was straight. Even though these sat nice and square on the bench, I just wanted to make sure that my roll bar was going to fit. So we got really good fitment in here. As you can see, it moves really nicely. And everything's square and stitched. The major problem now is I am all out of 3/32 weld rod, because I used it all welding up that chassis before Motorama, and I hadn't slept a whole lot, and I forgot to reorder it. So this is basically how it's going to sit for the time being. It is done minus being fully welded, so that makes me feel really good. Yeah, I may actually wind up just using this tube as my anti-roll bar. It's just DOM 120 wall, 1.5 inch. I don't know any reason why I shouldn't. I already have it. We have a ton of it here, so I may just clean it up and weld the bar ends onto it, link bar ends onto it. Yeah. So there you go. I'm gonna let this cool off a little bit. I did stitch the tabs on. I did have enough weld rod to do that, so they're on for good, spaced properly. But yeah, I'm going to let it cool, and we'll fit this in the truck one more time. I'll probably tack the arms onto this piece of tube, clean it up, and then we'll tack it in, and that'll end this one off. All right, everybody, there we have it. All bolted in. We got that anti-roll bar up front. So the bungee cord is for demonstration purposes only. But yeah, pretty happy with all this. We obviously got to throw a MIG weld up in here and blend that out to match that one before this all goes for powder coating, but otherwise it's damn near there. We got the tow hooks, we got the adjustable shock mounts. Really happy with this. So next time the box is off, we got to do a shock mount in the top. I might be able to use the existing ones, but probably not. And then we got to do that bar excuse me, across the notch for these arms. But for now, these are pretty much the last parts back here to get built before all this can go get powder coated. I think I'm going to, I have all new park brake cables, so I think I'm going to run them just so in case we need to build tabs or something off the diff, I can do that. And I'd also like to get the brake lines built for this diff. Again, just in case we have to, you know, drill tap. I'm assuming I'll be drilling and tapping through this. And then I need to come up with some type of mount for the two flex hoses that go up to the frame. So maybe we'll tackle that next video. And then we can get this whole shoot and match powder coated and in forever, which is pretty exciting. Really starting to look like something. I can't believe that this is the same truck that it was, you know. Really looks like a purpose-built unit now, which is good because this was always the lackluster end of the truck, to be honest. We never really had good luck with the rear diff or traction in general back here, so I'm really looking forward to having a good system. Lots of adjustability. We also use the tow hooks to get to Motorama and back, if you can't tell from the scratched up paint, and they worked amazing. They were so nice to just hook into and be able to strap down rather than having to go over the diff or whatever. So totally worth the effort for those. I feel really good about them, and yeah. Alrighty, well, that's gonna wind up finishing off this video, I think. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. A little bit more start to finish on one part, so I feel good about that. But yeah, see you next time.